Shalom. Today I'm going to share the first blog that I wrote, personal blog that I wrote. And it was back in 2011. I was prescribed liver gallbladder flush along with a couple of other procedures to help my overall physical well-being. All right. And after the 7-day ordeal, I wrote a letter to the doctor who was also a friend. So this is a journal, but it's also a letter that I wrote. And so this is Thursday, January 27th, 2011. Dear Dr. Jeff, day one of my gallbladder flush, the LGF, went very well. I drank the whole quart of salt water flush without getting nauseated. The kidney castor oil pack was relaxing, and the coffee enema was a bit awkward but painless. This was a miraculous outcome because I've been terrified of the coffee enema since the day of my scan last week. During the scan, when you marveled that I asked whether I needed a detox, and then the scan said that I needed a liver gallbladder flush, I began to feel wise, in touch with my body, and having special intuitive power for about 7 seconds. It was at that point I asked if the LGF involved an enema. Sure enough, you gave me the wrong answer, and the gray and blue clouds of despair and dread began to move in. I was anxious beyond belief, waiting on the detox instruction protocol to arrive by email. When I saw that it was 23 pages and what seemed to be complicated procedures, I set it on my desk. It took me 2 days to process my anxiety and dread to actually read it. While it sat unread on my desk, I knew in order to survive the week of detox, I needed a plan of attack, and I must relinquish most, if not all, of my household responsibilities. Okay. At that time, um, I was homeschooling to Winston and Zoe, and my husband was home and he was retired. Okay. First, I went to the calendar and cleared a total of 7 days starting on Wednesday, January 26, 2011. However, right before the start date, I did have a meeting on January 25th with Miss Social Worker from the Foster Adoption Agency. Floyd and I are planning to adopt again. Our two children, Winston and Zoe, were adopted as infants when we lived in Michigan, and at this time, I was living in Alabama. Second, I approached Winston and Zoe. Winston was 12 then at the time, and Zoe was 11, with the unread 23-page protocol in my hand, flipping the pages. Okay. I said, I need no stress. Well, a low stress 7 weeks next week. And I remembered all the no stress people. No stress people live in the cemetery, so you're going to have a little bit of stress. These procedures are going to take a lot of my time, and I need to be calm in order to get through this. They looked at the 23 pages of instructions and the I mean business look in my eyes and my don't try me demeanor. Simultaneously, they said, yes, ma'am, and quickly backed away. Early in the day, while carrying the instructions that detailed the coffee enema, I asked Lloyd, if you're scanned with Dr. Jeff, and all of us was getting scans, I said you should take a liver gallbladder flush, what would you do? Floyd hesitated and said, well, if I needed it, I would. Now, I have known Floyd and all his family since I was 5 years old. His uncle married my aunt, and we've been married at that time for 21 years. So what he was really saying was, if Dr. Jeff told me I would die that week unless I took a liver gallbladder flush, then I would take one. So I knew Floyd, okay? And normally I would have been all over him like white on rice, psychoanalyzing him and making connection between his denial and reluctance to do the LGF and his high blood sugar and the possibility it could result in him becoming disabled, bedridden, and leaving me to care for him with the extra burden of working through my anger at him because he didn't take the liver gallbladder flush that would have prevented all this hardship on top of my having to raise two children without the benefit of an able-bodied husband. However, I was so depressed about the coffee enema thing that I just said, I understand. So next I asked Floyd for help. I said, Floyd, I'm going to need some help. I don't think I can handle cooking and all these procedures at the same time. I need to have a clear space to relax my mind and just rest. He looked at me and saw my pitifulness and cheerfully said, "No problem, honey. I'd be happy to help." I wondered if behind his willingness he was thinking, "I'm glad it's you and not me." Okay, the last preparation was to write an hour by hour schedule of each day. Okay, I sometimes can get really just structured. Okay, so by Monday, January 24th, each ounce of the drinks, each supply needed, each procedure was allocated a time slot. It was perfect until you informed me on the morning of day one that the water of the salt flush could not be included in my daily water requirement. So back to the drawing board to recalculate the ounces of water needed for each time slot. Okay, by Tuesday morning I was ready, but still very depressed with the thoughts of the coffee enema. In the afternoon, Miss Social Worker came for the 3 to 4 hour session. A good part of the session was discussing some of the horrific things that happen to children that bring them into the foster care system, and some of the things the child does not share until well into the foster adoption placement. I was already moody and depressed, and the vivid descriptions given by Miss Social Worker brought on a tsunami of additional depressing thoughts. I catch myself holding my head in my hands, nearly touching the table when we were all gathered around in the library. And I wanted to escape the room in the evil world. All these horrible things were happening. Once, when I caught myself again holding my head with my hands over my eyes, I sat up straight and noticed how Floyd was quite involved in the conversation. All I could do was nod and grunt some responses. That's all I could do. But here was my husband, the man of few or no words, giving informational responses. The taser the grandfather used on the kids is called a cow prod, he offered, asking probing questions. Why do you think the district attorney didn't seek prosecution against the son of the city council member? And follow-up questions. Did the insurance company pay the foster mom each of the 3 times the foster child burned down her trailer? That was a depressing blow to me. I wanted this conversation to be over, and he was prolonging it. On top of that, this was a man that you had to pull phrases, much less sentences, out of him. This is the man that I would often bare my soul and he would just look at me wondering what I wanted him to say. This is the man that on several occasions when we were arguing about the lack of communication between us, I would end the one-sided conversation by quoting from Dionne Warwick's record. If anyone had a heart, they would take me in their arms and love me. Why won't you? Okay. But here he is with the social worker. Okay. So if Floyd and Miss Social Worker were on television and the sound was turned off, folks who knew Floyd would just know she was a sports announcer and they were discussing the Super Bowl because it couldn't have been nothing else. Okay. Now I'm about to die in the dark pit of depression. I have thoughts of the perils of Pearline, with a villain dressed in all black, 3/4 length suit jacket, black pants, and a tall, slim back top hat has tied her to the railroad tracks, and the fast train is approaching. All Pauline can do is struggle against the ropes and yell. I needed to get out of this meeting, okay? But I'm struggling to keep my body still and trying to suppress my screams. I can think of no way to politely ask them, "Shut up! Shut up!" If I blurt out my emotions, Miss Social Worker may falsely believe I'm unstable and unfit to adopt children. Floyd would be highly embarrassed and would demand I go immediately to bed after calling you, as Dr. Jeff, and saying that the coffee in him was too much for me to take, really too much for him. So I suffered through the session. That night I prayed, one, courage to start the 7 days. Okay, I wasn't even at the protocol yet. 2, wisdom to do each task to perfection. The 23-page protocol had a ridiculous statement that if you can't hold the enema, just release it and boil more coffee and start over. There was not going to be any repeats on this ship. None. And the ability to like the coffee enema. Now that was a pretty good one, but I was trying to build up my mind. Okay. Now, the last one was a stretch. However, in my life, I've learned that Jehovah is a gracious and generous giver. When we moved to Alabama in 2008, we prayed for a house with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and some land that we could afford. Jehovah blessed us with 5.2 acres with 2 houses. We rent out the second house we rented. 3 bathrooms in the main house, and a sandy creek beach on the other side of our wooded area, all for $45,000. It never would have entered my mind to have prayed for that much. So I've learned to enlarge my faith, my obedience, and my prayers. Dr. Jeff, at the beginning of the story, you see that numbers 1 and 2 were answered. Well, this morning, Floyd got up before me and got Winston and Zoe up to feed the animals and get ready for homeschool. And I think at that time we had goats and something else that they were doing. I could hear him singing my usual mantra: wash, put on lotion, deodorant, do your hair. Okay. Then he walked back into our dark bedroom and gave me a back rub, going in the correct clockwise manner, and asked if he could bring me anything. At that moment, I knew I liked coffee enemas. Respectfully, Shar. Now, I got through that, and it reminded me of Isaiah 40:29 through 31. He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might he increases strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young man shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint. I'm thankful the Father got me through that. And I hope you've enjoyed that story and that it be inspiration for you, that something that it seems like you can't go through, He will give you the strength to do it. Thank you for listening. Please leave a comment, like, and share, and subscribe if you haven't. Shalom.